I have my usual cast of characters with me here. Do something a little different with everything that has happened. We we have the unfortunate incident that I'm sure has been beaten into everyone's head that happened in Nashville, at the Covenant School there. The trans individual who ended up shooting up the school. Very, very tragic, very awful. I don't want to There's from last week we had a small debate on this, and I don't want to truly argue around this per se, just because I think it would be a little disrespectful. We're going to talk about it here, you know, try to keep it friendly and just keep everything that we're going respectful. I have Nick and Trevor with me. Wyatt is not here. You guys can say hello.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode. Glad to be here. Sadly, the stories today are not the happiest, but they need to be talked about.
Hello, condolences out to the families, and hopefully, we're going to show some respect with this topic and just discuss the ramifications of everything.
Yeah, so a lot of this, I personally initially wanted to try and actually keep away from this week, but everything that seems to have been in the news cycle since Monday has been surrounded around this. Um, we have I think you've got two different groups. You've got the group of people that stormed the Tennessee Capitol for the trans right issue, a group that stormed for gun right issue. All of it disgusting, by the way. All of it them just using this to forward their own agendas. Um, you saw a lot of things like from Routers, how they said former Christian school student shoots up a school, or I think the first headline that you saw is female student shooting up a school. Um, it was truly awful, and all of it being trying to be bent to a way that can fit their narrative rather than pointing out the reality that this was a mentally ill individual. This was someone who, I don't want to say needed help because that offers some sort of condolence or even victimhood to them. A terrible, terrible person. This woman who was deranged and thought they were a man went in and decided to kill children with the leading theory that it's because of the legislature that happened in Tennessee with them banning what they call gender affirming care, what I call mutilating children.
I would also like to add on that for your theory. As of right now, the manifesto has not been released yet. As the FBI is currently looking it over, trying to make a I don't want to say personification of this person, but trying to like make a description of this person for their motives and everything like that. But after they go over the manifesto, they are supposed to be releasing it to the public. So that's going to be very telling to see what she was truly thinking about and why she did this atrocious act.
Yeah, it is possible that it can be pure coincidence to that legislation being passed. That's just the leading theory that I've seen. I will say I agree with Matt Walsh as I agree with Matt Walsh on many things. Um, he's saying that the manifesto needs to be released now. I kind of get the sentiment. I don't think it should be necessarily reported on thoroughly, but I think it should be released to be read. I don't think that people should get to go through it and possibly, unfortunately, omit certain things. It's always
I
weird that they have a manifesto every
I,
single time.
I agree with you that it's kind of weird, and I will reiterate my points that I made earlier this week in a video that is that should be going live here soon. That I do not want to use this person's name whatsoever. I will only refer to them as the shooter, she, or piece of garbage because that's exactly what she is for taking the lives of these six innocent individuals, three of whom were kids. It's it's absolutely despicable. But the thing that struck out to me the most outside of the shooting was the way legacy media has been reacting to this. And my first first person first organization I want to go after is the New York Times. because the day that all this happened, they came out with a tweet. And I'm going to read the tweet for you right now. Quote, there was confusion later on Monday about the gender identity of the assailant in the Nashville shooting. Officials had used she and her to refer to the suspect, who, according to a social media post and a LinkedIn profile, appeared to identify as a man in recent months. I don't know. This was the end of quote. I don't know why they felt the need to give the person's preferred pronouns after this event that they had just done. That just completely baffles my mind. It seems like they are glancing completely over the core issue at hand.
Well, that's kind of by design. Like I said initially, everything they're doing is with the effort of, or with their effort of attempting to mask this as something it's not, as trying to make it fit into their narrative of peace, love, and tolerance that we know is not peace, love, and tolerance. This is stuff like this is the unfortunate reality of like what I was talking about last week, where I don't think I don't think it's the right mentality to sit here and find myself saying, or people to find themselves saying, well, an adult can do whatever they want. This is something that hurts people. It's all a delusion that they're attempting to completely normalize, and it's causing problems for people that need help. They don't need affirmation. And
I
then you
mean,
think this.
putting everything aside, like the philosophy or whatever, I don't think that really matters necessarily, specifically what the philosophy is. As with all of these cases where there's been, these school shootings that have become rampant, it's a clear issue of mental health. It's not gun control like the left likes to make it. It's not this, that, or like right wing political movements that people are speaking out against and just going violent with. It's not what it's really about. It's just a mental health issue. If these people did not have these mental conditions, which is not to make them victims in no means or way, like you should not be going out and doing these things. And anyone who does have a mental health disorder, if they go out and do terrible things, they need to be held, accountable for what they've done. But it is definitely a mental health issue, and I don't see why there isn't more of a push for mental health, especially when the left often considers like mental health to be a big issue and claims to want to help and all these things, when that's not what they're doing. They're just forgoing that and targeting what they really want to do with legislation.
In truth, I don't think it has anything to do with them trying to push gun legislation or anything like that. I think at the end of the day, they don't want this issue to ever be fixed, which is why they keep pushing drugs. They keep pushing that it's the rights issue, that the right is the reason for this, for trying to have as many guns out there as possible, as they like to claim to say. But they truly don't want this issue to be fixed, because if they do fix the issue, if they do fix the root cause, which is mental illness, I 100% agree with you, they're going to lose that voter block. And at the end of the day, they need to keep all this rage going. They need to keep all this hatred and divisiveness in the country to keep going, so that they can keep a voter block to stay in power. To say, hey, every time this happens, we push forward a bill that makes absolutely no sense, but we did something about it, so you all can vote for us again because we act like we care. I mean, it happens every time with every school shooting. There's always been this big push for new legislation for gun restriction. Hell, look at what happened in Kentucky. I believe it was today or yesterday, when the group of 500 protesters went in and was devoutly trying to stop the legislation and say, you need to start pushing more gun reform. We need to stop this from going on now. And it was absolutely terrifying to see that they went from trying to be compassionate about everything that had happened to, we're going to take away your rights because of some fringe individual. It makes no sense. It's just a cycle that keeps on going and going, so that they can keep the hatred going.
I understand what you're saying, but in a lot of ways, like they're pushed for these protests or whatever, and we have these protests that happen after every one of these shootings, and pushes for gun control. But when you look at like the voting and all that afterwards, typically it leans more towards the right, because everybody knows the right is the law and order side. Like, as much as we're conservative and all that, we are the ones that are, okay, well, if you break a law, you need to, be held accountable. Whereas you see what's happening in California, these other states that are just letting people do whatever the fuck they want. That's what the left's doing, and they're the ones that are allowing this shit to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, e- every single time you see one of these, I'm losing my train of thought. Someone else go on. I lost my train of thought.
I mean, all that to say
It's
is
all good.
like
Yeah.
they might be, you might have this conspiracy theory, quote unquote. I'm not trying to bash or anything, but like this theory that, oh well, they don't want this issue to be solved. But I think that they do. They just don't even realize what the real issue is. I mean, like, look at them when they make gun control laws. They don't even understand what the laws that they're imposing are actually about. They don't understand like what a gun even is, half of them, because you've seen these Congress hearings and all that where people that actually know what they're talking about, the few ex-members of the armed forces that are actually in Congress. I'm thinking of one in particular. I can't remember his name, the one with the eye patch. A
Yeah,
great guy. Yeah, a great guy. But he'll speak out and like show them, oh, this is an M1 Grant, a weapon of war, da 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 da. And you're not doing anything to ban this. You don't even know what a weapon of war is. You're making these arbitrary definitions of what an assault, quote unquote, weapon is. There is no real definition for what that is. Like, they don't know what they're talking about. They're grabbing at things in the dark, trying to solve the problem, and they don't understand it.
That was gonna be my point that I was gonna say. So I was gonna say, I my sister's a good example. My sister's the generic 16-year-old liberal sister. Um and she, every time I've this unfortunately happened, she posts the same, I'm pretty sure it's the same infographic or Venn diagram or whatever it is on Instagram about gun control, or they say like, we don't need your thoughts and prayers, we need gun control. But they fail to realize, for one, they call a guy with a gun to stop it. Two, she doesn't even know what certain guns are. I mean, she's seen my guns. She doesn't know what they are. She doesn't know the difference between them. I've shown her. I have two guns that shoot 5.56. One of them looks. It's not a mini 14, but it kind of looks like a mini 14. And the other's my AR. They're essentially the same thing. She's like, "Well, why do you have the black one?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness."
I mean, to kind of reiterate what I was talking, just to respond back to what you're saying, Trevor. The reason why I'm saying that it's just a cycle that they truly don't want to fix, that it's just constantly every election season, always a talking point that is never fixed. Take the case what happened between Representative Thomas Massey and I forget his first name, but Representative Bowman, who represents in New York. They got into a huge screaming match last night talking about how the solutions for these issues when it comes to gun control. Uh, Bowman shouted, quote, "Let them explain that all the way up until election day in 2024. They're freaking cowards. They're gutless." End of quote. With the context of screaming at Massey again, about how Republicans are always trying to fight for gun rights as opposed to trying to fight for gun restrictions. The, in his mind, taking everything away is what you have to do. However, whenever anything like this comes up, it's always election for the following election, for another election, for another election, and they just keep adding little bills to the pile with this pistol brace ban from the ATF. They are never truly going after the core issue. It's just, we're going to ban this fringe element or this fringe attachment because it's scary and it's going to do so much damage to the public. So that way, when it comes time for election season, they could say, "Hey, I actually did something to try to fight this violence."
No, I mean, I get what you're saying, but my argument is this. They have to say something when something like this happens. So they're going to cling to these ideas about, gun control, which is what they want to push, and, all these other things like limiting basically our rights. And they don't know what they're really talking about, but they have to say something. They have to say something. And I don't think that they really want to, because if you look at what's actually been going on, like how voters have been shifting, they've been shifting more towards the right because of these exact issues, because of law and order issues. I mean, look at California. It's a shithole. Everybody's running around on the streets, rampant violence, and wanton destruction, and nothing's really being done about it. And that's why people are fleeing in droves, in absolute droves, because it's terrible. And I'm not saying that really that's not the ideal thing to do, is leave your city or your state or whatever because of what's going on. Really, you need to, vote to change, and otherwise nothing's ever going to change there. It's just going to progressively get worse. But I understand why people are doing it, and you can't really blame them for leaving. And it
Yeah.
just goes to show that people are waking up to what's going on. I think that maybe, you know, 2016, 2020, between there, that's what it was. It was more of a look, we're saying this, it's a gun rights issue, da 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 da, and they were using it kind of as a piggyback for elections. But now I don't think it's working for them anymore. Like I can't, I haven't seen the physical numbers myself, but I imagine that they do not represent an increase in the left with the issues that they've been, pushing on the gun legislation, at least, because we've seen plenty of evidence happening in the past, 2 years, especially, where situations where there is a person with a gun go much better, a good guy with a gun near the situation go way better than when there isn't. And the only reason that this was not a worse situation, because of the commendable reaction time of the PD there. Like 15 minutes from this first shootings to the police getting there is impressive, to say the least. These cops went above and beyond. They got in there. They did not shy away from it. A 5-man team went in and they took care of business. And that's what people don't
I got
understand.
Have you
I
seen
got
have you
hold,
seen
hold,
the
hold,
video?
I
It's just real quick. Sorry, Nick. Have you just the video? If you've watched it, I believe the officer Rex, I can't remember the rest of his name. Um, when he walks past the woman and she's explaining to him and he just goes, "Yes, ma'am," and just walks right past and right in. And I was like, "There you go. That's what you need." That was my first and only thought with that video. I'm sorry, Nick. Go on.
Oh no, you're good. And the only thing that I was going to really say about that is that Trevor, you are putting out some fake news there. It was 14 minutes from the first call into the shooter was dead, so it was a 14-minute response time from beginning to end. So
Even better. I
even better.
rest my
Yes,
case.
I know. Even better. I wasn't trying to dig at you. I was like, hold up. Um, but no, because the according to reports, the woman entered the school at 10:13 a.m. and by 10:27 she was lying on the floor. So just due to these heroes, the cops that entered into the building definitely did a lot better than the Uvalde cops. I'll tell you that from their response time. But I'm not going to get into that at all. It's just seeing the night and day difference between these two police organizations is just absolutely beautiful.
And
Seeing how much better they were.
I am glad to see that there is, people coming out and commending them and actually proud of them and not trying to like slyly bash them or anything, because I've seen that too much. And as much, I'm not the biggest fan of the authorities myself, but I understand that they're necessary and there are good cops out there. And these were some great cops, especially in this situation.
I'm not generally the type to really. I mean, I personally I like the police. I'm training to be EMS. I don't personally see the appeal to digging on them. I mean I kind of get it, but I hold the same sentiment. I say at this point it's we've spoken enough about the shooting itself. Let's talk about its repercussions if we turn our eyes to the post millennial here. Transurrection. Nice play on words. Trans activists storm Kentucky Capitol to protest law prohibiting child sex change. Several arrested.
Yeah, and it was not just in Kentucky. You also had the Texas legislator the same day that they were doing their vote for their gender affirmation bill. On Monday, the same day that the shooting happened, I believe you're the one to share us the video from WRC. How they're just outside chanting that this is no place for hate, that they were blaming the Republicans or the conservatives in these legislators for being the cause of this horrific event because of the laws that they're putting in place.
Yeah,
Trying
which
to
is absolutely. It's just an absolutely ridiculous sentiment on their part. I know you agree. I'm just kind of saying it's like there's nothing up there. They would rather kind of push a little bit towards defending this person because they identified as trans. If you actually you don't have Twitter, scrolling through Twitter, Nick, is awful right now. Absolutely terrible. I'll have to see if I can pull some up, but there's so many different things defending the shooter because people misgendered them on news channels. It's really sickening.
Oh yeah, it is truly sickening, especially seeing all the support that the community's been getting, citing that they are under this kind of genocide. And this is probably best time to bring up the Trans Day of Vengeance that was also announced this week as
Hmm.
well. And I know that they're trying to say that what's going to happen starting tomorrow into going through Sunday, and the actual Day of Vengeance itself is supposed to take place on Saturday. They keep claiming it's going to be peaceful. It's going to be peaceful. Uh, but if we go and actually look at their homepage or their page where they're trying to describe the Trans Day of Vengeance, why put the wording in there? Why use vengeance as the wording? If you're trying to put out this peaceful message saying that we're going to peacefully protest, we're going to peacefully go after these the people in SCOTUS for telling them that we're here, that this is our right to be here, and blah blah blah, whatever they're trying to talk about.
I will
Why
say,
why not use the Trans Day of Remembrance?
yeah,
Why the Trans Day of Vengeance?
I also say that they've referenced right here the Stonewall riots.
Yes.
Riot isn't the
Yes.
word that I would really, say is very peaceful. That's just me though.
What about the Molotovs?
The
The,
other
the
thing with
Molotov sentence inside of there.
the Trans
There's
Day of
oh
Vengeance,
yeah,
this
talking
picture
a
we
quote.
have here, this picture we have here is not the one that I've seen. I keep seeing one that I'm pretty sure is the one of the ones that they put out with the Trans Day of Vengeance little infographic thing they have there with like rifles on the side of it. Like really obvious imagery of what this really means to them anyway.
I mean, if you take a look at Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, he came out with a whole monologue after this event talking about how he is truly anti-gun. He is truly anti anybody owning any kind of firearm in the sense of weapons of war and this and that, which weapons of war don't exist for the civilian populace, but that's another conversation for another day. And he then went on at the end of his whole tirade saying the only community that should have it, though, is the trans community because they are constantly under attack. They are constantly facing the threat of genocide. What kind of genocide are they facing? Are they talking about how legislators across the US are banning gender affirmation for minors? Are they willing to go out and kill people for the sole fact that they want to mutilate minors and let them go take these gender hormone therapies and mutilate themselves? Is that truly what they're trying to fight for? Because if so, that is not the kind of messaging I want to send to kids. That's not the messaging I'd want to send to the general populace. Because I guarantee, if you use that phrasing, you would lose support almost instantly overnight.
I mean, there's no defending it. There's no defending any of this. Like, if you want to have a peaceful protest, go have a peaceful protest, but you're not using the words of peaceful protest, and you need to acknowledge that and not try and hide behind it and play the victim at any point in this. Like, they're not the victim here.
I mean, if you take a look at the the New York Post made a pretty good article. It actually just dropped about 40 minutes ago, so we didn't have time to go over it before the podcast started. But the headline reads: FBI probes harassers as gun-toting trans activists vow in self-defense. So essentially, from reading through the article, the FBI has been going after people who are quote unquote harassing the trans community based on this event. So they're allowing all of these the people in the trans community to go arm themselves and post pictures saying "I will defend myself," in which I'm not arguing that. If you want to post a picture of yourself saying "I will defend myself," 100% for you. I'm 100% down for it. Everybody has that right. But when you when you cross a certain line where it looks like it is aggressive, sort of like what the former spokesperson for Katie Hobbs, the governor in Arizona, I believe, made her post on Twitter where she was saying, "Hey, this is what's going to happen if you see a transphobe," and just the picture of the two guns pointing at people. That's crossing the line. But if you're just posting a
Yeah.
picture of yourself saying, "Hey, this is for self-defense," I'm not against it, but there's a very fine line that you have to try to
Yeah, if
take.
I mean,
someone
legally, there's a
if
difference
someone
between a threat and,
yeah.
just a statement.
Well, if someone actually attacks someone, regardless of anyone's thoughts on trans people or trans people in general, if someone actually tries to attack someone, you should always have reserve the right to defend yourself, and you should defend yourself. But that's not what these people mean. These people, they're either really not that intelligent and don't realize that people aren't actually coming for them, or they know damn well people aren't coming for them and they're just making their statements as safely as they can online without being persecuted by any sort of law themselves. One of those two things.
It is also a case of, internet warriors that are just hiding behind it and saying, in the safety of their homes, "Oh, look at me, I'm a badass.
Yeah, yeah. Meet me at the IHOP.
Meet
This
me
is
at the IHOP in 5 years from now." Why
yeah.
5 years from now? Because you won't remember.
We live in a
Oh,
clown. We live in a clown world. We
that
really do.
we do. We live in a clown world. One of my favorite accounts on Twitter is a clown world because it unfortunately shows us really how bad it is.
I mean, just
This is,
just
this is all insanity. It's been a crazy week, and Monday. I mean, you saw I was sending the articles into our little organizer on Discord here throughout the entire day, and it just the development of it from start to finish. It's all truly awful. It's all truly disgusting, and they can't help themselves. Like none of them on their side could help themselves, as they're all still working in some way, a little creaking on the edge there, where they're kind of defending. They're like, up, well, this was the fault of the legislator of the Republicans for making this the last solution. Like, is that really the angle you wanna go off of? Is that really the angle you wanna try and present this to me, that the final solution was for you guys, for your ideology, for your side to go start killing children because you're not allowed to mutilate them? Do you just have to harm children in some
Look,
way? Is that a prerequisite? You have to harm children in some way?
all I'm going to say is if you start talking about a final solution, something's fucked up.
Well,
so
that is true.
it's funny that you say that because I also like using the Daily Mail for a lot of my news, and the article that I actually just sent down to the little organizer has exactly what you're talking about for a final solution post uh from the from a Twitter user called at TND Tracker. I'm going to not read the very first line because it uses the shooter's name, which I'm not going to say. They are a martyr. They said, "quote They are a martyr against transphobia from hateful Christian bigots like you genociding us. We will defend ourselves from you. Where is your God now? Pray for mercy because we won't show any." Actively talking about going out and killing these people. Just they're seeing this woman, the shooter, as a martyr for their cause, and seeing this dramatic escalation in rhetoric. I I don't know whether to be worried about what's supposed to happen on Saturday with the Trans Day of Vengeance, or just think it's just another blip on the radar for people just saying things that's never going to happen.
I certainly hope it is, because if you go a little bit further down on this Daily Mail article, I'm gonna make fun of this person if you wanna get
No,
there
no, no. Go ahead.
on the
Go ahead.
video. No, I'm saying for Trevor, if you want to get there on the stream, if you want to get to that Daily Mail article and just
Okay,
go a
the
little
one you
bit down
linked.
to
Okay.
this
The
it
pink hair.
says the transgender activist Kayla Danker shows off their firearm. If you want to go to that video real quick, just a little bit further down, and I'll make fun of this person a little bit here.
Oh, I think this is also the
This is the
shirt
one
that you were
of
talking
the
about.
with the AR-15.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I have it
one
on stream.
right there. Yeah, so we've let's analyze this here. So for one, clearly it's a real gun, but let's take a look at that magnifier they got there. Look at that weird, like sleek, plasticky looking look. They got that on Amazon. That's for airsoft. And what's look at that? They've got the slanted grip, the generic slanted grip. I think I have that on my airsoft gun. It looks exactly like the one that I got from the off-brand Chinese company. Jesus Christ, this is
Hold on, they
ridiculous.
got freaking ads.
Oh
God
god,
damn
it's
it.
loud.
All
Yeah.
and if you scroll down even further, there's been a new shirt that's been popping off as well. It's
Oh man, look at
near
their outfit.
yeah.
They've
It
got the
is
oh god. Got a
that
terror
Yeah.
brace.
the T-shirt that says "trans rights" or else. Just this shirt has been popping up a lot on a lot of my news feeds here lately. All of a sudden, because of I'm assuming because they're trying to get traction based on the horrific event that happened. If so, that is absolutely abhorrent. But seeing shirts like this and seeing the kind of rhetoric, it does scare me. I'm not going to lie, not much scares me, but when I see a group of people get this riled up over quote unquote what they use a martyr, it it, I don't see any way around any
I
of this.
mean,
Like
either it's
this
gonna
is
be the
something that
summer love
taken
or
care of.
yeah, it's gonna be the summer love or it's gonna be nothing at all. And that's the worry thing. We don't know which one it's gonna be.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean I certainly hope we don't have another Summer of Love.
Overall,
I mean, what I don't even know. I don't could how many times does something like the Summer of Love have to happen before some sort of confrontation happens in the street? Before some small group of fringe Antifa, kind of like if you remember, this was years ago. Crowder and Not Gay Jared did a like a infiltration to Antifa, and I think they were gonna like try and shoot up a Ben Shapiro rally or something. What happens when something like that happens, but it actually makes it off the planning floor? When a small group starts to shoot, and then a group starts to shoot back, and then other people just not even knowing what's going on start shooting.
I mean, I didn't Matt Walsh also cancel his tour for a
He
couple of
did.
colleges he was
He
supposed to go
did
to
because people were
because
threatening his family, and mostly because they were threatening his family, but they were threatening him as well.
yeah, I know he came out with a statement saying that his family comes first before anything else, which I
Of
fully
course,
agree with 100%. And
absolutely.
I know that there's been a bunch of legacy media outlets that have been coming out saying that the Daily Wire is also responsible for the shooting because of it being in Nashville, and Matt Walsh is credited with a lot of his speeches for being why the legislator passed their anti-gender affirmation bill, and they're just receiving hate because they're following through with how the legislature is supposed to work. You vote in certain representatives. They're supposed to represent what you want, and if you can make a compelling argument for the people around you, they're going to vote the way that they want to vote. They're going through the democratic system, which the left always talks about our democracy, our democracy, our democracy all the time. You'd think that they'd be happy about this and not shooting everything up.
Well, because it's our democracy, so long as it's our ideas.
You're right.
They just want to be completely affirmed for their ideology, for their thought of how the world works, for their reality, which doesn't exist and isn't reality.
It's multiculturalism. There's no unifying culture anymore. They try to keep pushing this multiculturalism idea where every single culture matters, where every idea is supposed to matter as long as it conforms to what they truly believe. It's a cult.
Absolutely. Oh, it's absolutely a cult.
I am
I mean,
curious.
oh, go
I am
on.
curious, just kind of a side note, if they've actually started preparing for this protest, quote unquote, which is probably going to turn into a riot, in the same fashion that they were already like a week before it was set to happen, preparing for the, you know,
Trump indictment.
Trump indictment. Yeah. And there's been nothing on that, like nobody's reporting, oh, yeah, they're putting up barricades and all that. Like, because they don't see it as an issue. They don't want to put it in the news.
Mhm.
I would have to agree with you. I would like to see what kind of organization has gone into this for getting everything ready. I know there's been multiple calls for gathering your weapons. It's time for our time to fight back, and this and that from Twitter users, from a couple of commentators that I watched, like Tim Pool and Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, and all of them. They've mentioned this a couple of times. But
Real quick, it's actually interesting. There's not a single article about that. If you look up like DC prepares for Trans Day of Vengeance, there's not even a single buzzword from that. And
I
then
just looked
eventually it
up
gets into
on my side monitor. I looked it up, and yeah, I didn't find anything because I was curious.
yeah, not a single thing. That is crazy. I mean, you got to think there too because they have to know too that Trump voters aren't gonna go out and do straight up violence in a protest, even if they did protest. So there's something going on there, some sort of psyop or something where they're trying to convince people. Like, maybe it sounds a little crazy, but I mean, I think it's perfectly founded. Because come on, they know that they're not going to go out and do violence if Trump has been indicted, I think as of like an hour or so ago. But they know that they're not going to go out and do violence. They're going to protest a little bit, maybe, probably, but they're not going to be violent. These people who are known to be violent, they're not a word, not a peep about defenses or barricades or anything like that. It's almost like a psyop trying to convince people that the other side is the more violent one.
mm,
They've always claimed that, oh no, it's peaceful protest. Chaz is a peaceful protest when they literally took over
Oh
an
God.
entire. I mean, like, it's just so much hypocrisy, and it's tiring. And thankfully, a lot of people have started to wake up and see what's going on and being like, I don't really like, people coming into my business and destroying it, and nothing really happening about it, and I don't really like rampant theft and all these other things. So maybe I should vote for those other guys that are kind of talking about like how that's not a good thing. So
Yeah,
hopefully
no,
we're gonna find out tomorrow and this weekend
yeah, I know, right?
what happens, and it's gonna be kind of worrying. But thankfully, I don't live in one of these areas that should be heavily affected by it. So
well,
it's gonna be next week. We're gonna go live and be like coming live from the transgender front. Um, a group of drag queens have just drawn in with pikes and shields. There were no there were no survivors in 3rd Street in Atlanta.
the
tactical
worst part.
airdrop of guys with big schlongs
What what
just
the
schwacked everybody.
what the hell is that? Holy shit. They're dropping a femboy in.
I'd be halfway tempted to go to DC because of how close I live to DC, to see how everything pans out. The only thing is I don't like driving cities. I really like to stay away from, but
I
I'd be
don't
pretty
drive
tempted.
in cities.
C is the worst too, especially in the morning. It's terrible.
Yeah, I believe it.
So since we already mentioned the Trump indictment and we have already beat to death all of these other issues, do you guys want to get into Trump's indictment for a couple minutes?
I say that is a very early story. We can save that for when it develops because I'm sure that's going to be the next big development. It's either going to be more Trans Day of Vengeance if it gets violent, or it's going to be that. So I say we save that. I say we end it. We end this really not so enjoyable topic. We end it with Libs of TikTok here suing suing AOC essentially. I think what it is they sued her. What was it exactly? An
The
ethics complaint.
Yeah, an
I think
ethics
that
complaint against AOC. They went to Capitol Hill and gave it to AOC's staffer, who was like, if you watch the video, which I'm sure we will, to we can react to it as
Yeah, I
well.
have it pulled up.
She's very confused at what's going on, and it's just like, okay, I guess I'll give it to her, and then I forget the woman who runs Libs of TikTok. What's her name, Brandon? Chaya Raichek.
Chaya Rychek.
She saw AOC on her way out, and I'm not going to spoil anything else, but it is a hilarious video. a hilarious video.
Oh, it is. I say, yeah, let's pull this up. Let's watch this here.
It should be pulled up on the stream.
Yeah, I see. I'm
Okay.
ready.
All right. Press and play.
I love her outfit actually. Very trad wife.
I mean, just look at the staffer. She looks quite confused. She's just like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
Hand dropping off some mail. Thanks to Mike.
Yeah, Big Mike for the Heritage Foundation. This poor staffer.
I also like how AOC just kind of
She's like, she looks, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, more people talking good about me. Wow. So kind. AOC so kind. So such a nice person, right?
You're actually transphobic. You're actually transphobic.
I really liked the actually transphobic when she was just trying to explain to her that she didn't incite a bomb threat. And she's like, well, you're transphobic. And then she runs away. These people can't have a conversation. Like this is hilarious. And how someone like I fully intend the next time I see this to see my sister to show her this video because things like this make her very mad. But I cannot comprehend how someone can look at this and not immediately go, wow, what a
That person is an elected official.
yeah, what a cunt of a woman that we have elected and allowed into the Capitol to fight for us. What an individual.
Like, what happened to
Running
decorum?
away and pointing directly face to face with an American citizen and attempting to insult them.
So I actually have something to say about this because Tim Pool also released like a short 10-minute video on this today, which I recommend all the listeners go to because he also has a huge breakdown about why AOC is just a horrific representative. Because when she made up the whole story on January 6th, how she was so terrified that the protesters had gotten in, she thought she was going to die. She had to hide with her staffer in the bathroom and this and that. And Tim Pool was just like, yeah, no, it's just a straight lie. Because her timeline, if you watch the original video when she put it out, her timeline for the exact time she said everything happened was an hour before the January 6th Sixers actually went through the gate. So everything happened an hour before everything was supposed to happen. And she does like this whole big thing about the cop that knocked on her door to try to take her somewhere, and he's just like, where is she, and she's saying that I'm gonna die and this and that. It is absolutely hilarious. I recommend everyone go watch that breakdown. It is she is truly a despicable person.
Terrible person. We should invite her to play Among Us with us. We should do an Among Us day with AOC. She did it with all those random YouTubers. We invite her to play Among Us with us.
We haven't paid her enough money for her next campaign. She would
That's
never
true.
get us.
We haven't given her enough money. Pull your money together. We're giving it to AOC. We're gonna get her to play Among Us with us.
I could never even to bash her in some Among Us.
Honestly, I'd much rather play with like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Thomas Massey, one of them, or Lauren Boebert.
That'd be really funny. I don't actually want to play Among Us with an elected official.
I will say, what a funny game to play. A game focused on lying.
Yeah.
I think
But I've
that
been a bit
yeah.
She was probably great at it. I didn't even think of that. I know she played. I didn't watch the video, but that's a fair point. I bet you she was great at that game. She probably still plays it. Probably loves that game.
What do
Or
you mean?
even
She
like
she
that.
she came up with the idea because she needed training.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. How could I be so blind to
She's like,
that
shit, they're
fact?
catching on to my lies. I need to train up.
Oh shit. I gotta get better at this. Capitol Hill is hard.
Yep.
Jeez Louise.
Before you do
COVID
one
was just a psyop so that AOC could get some more Among Us training. That's
Oh,
my theory.
absolutely. COVID purely existed so that AOC could get good at Among Us.
more.
Can you imagine?
Uh, well, on that note,
We live in a ridiculous clown world. What's
Yeah.
up?
On that note.
I think it's about time we wrap things up.
Yeah, I think we've gotten to the point. A little bit of a short one here. There's really only one unfortunate story of the news cycle there, but we'll end it on a bit of a lighter note. Um, I'd kind of end this with. Sorry, 1 second. I lost something that I had.
Oh, were you doing a quote?
I was not doing a quote.
Oh, good.
Well,
I-
while
I
Brandon's trying to find that, I would like to take this moment to give all my sincerest condolences to all the families who lost a loved one that day, who were the victims of this horrific incident. And my absolute praises go out to all the officers who entered that building fearlessly to take down that insane psychopath.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I can't find what I was looking for, so I'll just end this with, my own thoughts and prayers. Let's not forget the people who unfortunately passed. Let's remember their names. There was Evelyn Deekhouse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not. She was one of the third graders at the school. Haley Scruggs, William Kinney, two other, I believe, third graders, two of the other younger children. And then there was the head of the school, Catherine Kuntz, Mike Hill, a custodian why the custodian? Custodian was just there to clean, and Cynthia Peak, a substitute teacher. Don't forget them. Remember their names. Try not to remember the name of the shooter. And I think that's it from me for today.
Thank you all for watching.
Yes, thank you.